Hello friends, a big welcome to our very own channel Ammu&You, where I am Ammu and I have another beautiful story to narrate to you. This story that I have today for you is written by the famous R.K.Narayan, and the name of the story is A Horse and Two Goats. Of the 700,000 villages dotting the map of India, Kritam was probably the tiniest indicated on the district survey map by a microscopic dot. But its size did not prevent its giving itself the grandiose name Kritam, which meant in Tamil, coronet or crown on the brow of the subcontinent. The village consisted of less than 30 houses, only one of them built with brick and cement. Painted a brilliant yellow and blue all over, with gorgeous carvings of gods and gargoyles on its balustrade, it was known as the Big House. The other houses, distributed in 4 streets, were generally of bamboo thatch, straw, mud, and other unspecified material. Muni's was the last house in the 4th street, beyond which stretched the fields. In his prosperous days, Muni had owned a flock of 40 sheep and goats and sallied forth every morning, driving the flock to the highway a couple of miles away. There he would sit on the pedestal of a clay statue of a horse until his cattle grazed around. He carried a crook at the end of a bamboo pole and snapped foliage from the avenue trees to feed his flock. He also gathered faggots and dry sticks, bundled them and carried them home for fuel at sunset. His wife lit the domestic fire at dawn, boiled water in a mud pot, threw into it a handful of millet flour, added salt, and gave him his first nourishment for the day. When he started out, she would put in his hand a packed lunch, once again the same millet cooked into a little ball, which he could swallow with a raw onion at midday. His fortunes had declined gradually, unnoticed. From a flock of 40, which he drove into the pen at night, it had come down now to the 2 goats, which were tethered to the trunk of a drumstick tree which grew in front of his hut, and from which occasionally Muni could shake down drumsticks. This morning he got 6. He carried them in with a sense of triumph. Although no one could say precisely who owned the tree, it was his because he lived in its shadow. His wife said, "If you were content with the drumstick leaves alone, I could boil and salt some for you." "Oh, I'm tired of eating those leaves. I have a craving to chew the drumstick out of sauce, I tell you." "You have only 4 teeth in your jaw, but your craving is for big things. All right, get the stuff for the sauce, and I will prepare it for you. After all, next year you may not be alive to ask for anything. But first get me all the stuff, including a measure of rice or millet, and I will satisfy your unholy craving. Our store is empty today. Dal, chili, curry leaves, mustard, nothing is left. And we just have 1 large potato. Go out and get all this." He repeated the list after her in order not to miss any item and walked off to the shop in the 3rd street. Muni sat patiently on an upturned packing case below the platform of the shop. The shopman paid no attention to him. Muni kept clearing his throat, coughing and sneezing until the shopman could not stand it anymore and demanded, "What ails you? You will fly off that seat into the gutter if you sneeze so hard." "Young man," Muni laughed inordinately in order to please the shopman at being called young man. This completely won the shopman over. He liked his sense of humor to be appreciated. Who doesn't? By thus humoring the shopman, Muni could always ask for 1 or 2 items of food, promising repayment later. Sometimes he would lose his temper suddenly and bark at Muni for daring to ask for credit. The shopman said, "If you could find 5 rupees and a quarter, you will have paid off an ancient debt. How much have you got now? I will pay you everything on the first of the next month. As always, and whom do you expect to rob by then? Muni felt caught and mumbled. My daughter has sent word that she will be sending me money. Have you a daughter? Sneered the shopman. And she's sending you money. For what purpose may I know? Birthday, 50th birthday, said Muni quietly. Birthday? How old are you? Muni repeated weakly, not being sure of it himself. 50. He always calculated his age from the time of the great famine when he stood as high as the parapet around the village well. But who could calculate such things accurately nowadays with so many famines occurring? The shopman felt encouraged when other customers stood around to watch and comment. More likely you are 70, he said to me. You also forget that you mentioned a birthday 5 weeks ago when you wanted castor oil for your holy bath. At this, Muni unobtrusively rose and moved off. He later told his wife, that scoundrel would not give me anything. So go out and sell the drumsticks for what they are worth. He flung himself down in a corner to recoup from the fatigue of his visit to the shop. His wife said, you are getting no sauce today, nor anything else. I can't find anything to give you to eat. Fast till the evening. It will do you good. Take the goats and be gone, she cried and added. Don't come back before the sun is down. He knew that if he obeyed her, she would somehow conjure up some food for him in the evening. Only he must be careful not to argue and irritate her. Her temper was undependable in the morning, but improved by evening time. She was sure to go out and work, grind corn in the big house, sweep or scrub somewhere, and earn enough to buy foodstuff and keep a dinner ready for him in the evening. Unleashing the goats from the drumstick tree, Muni started out, driving them ahead and uttering weird cries from time to time in order to urge them on. He passed through the village with his head bowed in thought. He did not want to look at anyone or be accosted. A couple of cronies lounging in the temple corridor hailed him, but he ignored their call. The shopman had said that he was 70. At 70, one only waited to be summoned by God. When he was dead, what would his wife do? They had lived in each other's company since they were children. He had been told on their day of wedding that he was 10 years old and she was 8. Progeny, none. Perhaps a large progeny would have brought him the blessings of the gods. Only on the outskirts did he lift his head and look up. He urged and bullied the goats until they meandered along to the foot of the horse statue on the edge of the village. He sat on its pedestal for the rest of the day. The advantage of this was that he could watch the highway and see the lorries and buses pass through to the hills, and it gave him a sense of belonging to a larger world. The pedestal of the statue was broad enough for him to move around as the sun traveled up and westward, or he could also crouch under the belly of the horse for shade. The horse was nearly life-size, molded out of clay, baked, burnt, and brightly colored, and reared its head proudly, prancing its forelegs in the air and flourishing its tail in a loop. Besides the horse stood a warrior with skite-like mustachios, bulging eyes, and aquiline nose. The horse itself was said to have been as white as a dhobi washed sheet, and had on its back a cover of pure brocade of red and black lace, matching the multicolored sash around the waist of the warrior. But none in the village remembered the splendor, as no one noticed its existence. Even Muni, who spent all his waking hours at its foot, never bothered to look up. It was untouched, even by the young vandals of the village, who gashed trunks with knives and tried to topple off milestones and inscribe lewd designs on all walls. This statue had been closer to the population of the village at one time when this spot bordered the village. Muni sat at the foot of the statue, watching his two goats graze in the arid soil among the cactus and lantana bushes. He looked at the sun. It had tilted westward, no doubt, but it was not the time yet to go back home. He noticed now a new sort of vehicle coming down at full speed. It looked like both a motor car and a bus. Today, while he observed the yellow vehicle coming down, he was wondering how to describe it later to his wife when it sputtered and stopped in front of him. A red-faced foreigner who had been driving it got down and went round it, stooping, looking and poking under the vehicle. Then he straightened himself up, looked at the dashboard, stared in Muni's direction and approached him. "Excuse me, is there a gas station nearby? Or do I have to wait until another car comes?" He suddenly looked up at the clay horse and cried, "Marvelous!" without completing his sentence. Muni felt he should get up and run away and cursed his age. He could not readily put his limbs into actions. The red-faced man wore khaki clothes, evidently a policeman or a soldier. Muni said to himself, "He will chase or shoot if I start running. Some dogs chase only those who run. Oh Shiva, protect me. I don't know why this man should come and stand here." Meanwhile, the foreigner cried, "Marvelous!" again, nodding his head. He paced around the statue with his eyes fixed on it. "Namaste, how do you do?" said he to Muni, at which Muni spoke the only English expressions he had learned. Yes, no. Having exhausted his English vocabulary, he started in Tamil. "My name is Muni. These two goats are mine, and no one can gainsay it." The foreigner faithfully looked in the direction indicated by Muni's fingers, gazed for a while at the two goats and the rocks, and with a puzzled expression, took out his silver cigarette case and lit a cigarette. Suddenly remembering the courtesies of the season, he asked, "Do you smoke?" He had always wanted to smoke a cigarette. Only once did the shopman give him one on credit, and he remembered how good it had tasted. Muni thought. The other flicked the lighter open and offered a light to Muni. Muni felt so confused about how to act that he blew on it and put it out. The other, puzzled but undaunted, flourished his lighter, presented it again, and lit Muni's cigarette. Muni drew a deep puff and started coughing. It was racking, no doubt, but extremely pleasant. He wiped his eyes and took stock of the situation. The man said, "I come from New York," took out a wallet and presented a card. Muni shrank away from the card. Perhaps he was trying to present a warrant and arrest him. Beware of khaki. One part of his mind warned. Take all the cigarettes or whatever is offered, but don't get caught. Beware of khaki. He wished he weren't 70, as the shopman had said. He said, "Before God, sir, Bhagwan, who sees everything, I tell you, sir, that we know nothing of the case. If the murder was committed, whoever did it will not escape. Please accept this. A body had been found at the border between Kritam and Kuppam a few weeks before, giving rise to much gossip and speculation." Muni added an explanation. "Anything is possible here. People over there will stop at nothing." The foreigner nodded his head, understanding nothing. I'm sure you know where this horse was made, said the red man. Muni reacted to the relaxed atmosphere. Please go away, sir. I know nothing. I promise we will hold him for you if we see any bad character around. Must be definitely from another village. Now the red man implored. Please, please, I will speak slowly. Please try to understand me. Can't you understand a single word of English? Everyone in this country seems to know English. Have you any religious or spiritual sculptures or thoughts against English speech? Muni made some indistinct sounds in his throat and shook his head. Encouraged, the other went on to explain at length, uttering each syllable with care and deliberation. You see, last August, we probably had the hottest summer in history. We had a power failure one day, and there was ice stuck for 4 hours, no elevators, no air conditioning. All the way in the train, I kept thinking. I told my wife, Ruth, we will visit India in winter. It's time to look at other civilizations. And here I come. Muni looked reflective at the end of this long oration, saying, yes, no, when I was this high, I had heard my uncle say, all in Tamil. No one can tell what he was planning to say, as the other interrupted him. Boy, what is the secret of your teeth? How old are you? Muni forgot what he had started to say. Sometimes we too lose our cattle. Jackals or cheetahs may sometimes carry them off, but sometimes it is just theft from over in the next village. The American watched his hands intently and said, I know what you mean. Chop something? Maybe I'm holding you up and you want to chop wood. Where is your axe? Hand it to me and show me what to chop. I do enjoy it. Just a hobby. Muni felt totally confused, but decided the best thing would be to make an attempt to get away from this place. Must go home. And he turned to go. The other seized his shoulder and said desperately, is there no one, absolutely no one here to translate for me? Isn't this statue yours? Why don't you sell it to me? The old man now understood the reference to the horse, thought for a second, and said in his own language, I was an urchin this high when I heard my grandfather explain this horse and wood. The other man interrupted him. I don't want to seem to have stopped here for nothing. I will offer you a good price. Without the least doubt that Muni owned this mud horse, the foreigner tried to communicate with him. Muni followed the man's eyes and pointing fingers and dimly understood the subject matter. And feeling relieved that the theme of the mutilated body had been abandoned, at least for the time being, he started again. I was this high when my grandfather. The foreigner listened with fascination. I wish I had my tape recorder here. Your language sounds wonderful. I get a kick out of every word you utter. Saying this, he kept on listening. I never went to a school. In those days, only Brahmins went to schools, but we had to go out and work in the fields morning till night. The foreigner laughed heartily, took out another cigarette and offered it to Muni, who now smoked with ease. The American now stood up on the pedestal in the attitude of a demonstrative lecture. I could give you a sales talk for this better than anyone else. This is a marvelous combination of yellow and indigo. Though fading now, how do you people of this country achieve these flaming colors? He said. Muni, now assured that the subject was still the horse and not the dead body, said, this is our guardian. It means death to our adversaries. At the end of Kali Yuga, this world and all other worlds will be destroyed. While he was brooding on this pleasant vision, the foreigner utilized the pause to say, I assure you that this will have the best home in the USA. I'll push away the bookcase, you know, I love books. But they will all have to go. Ruth may disapprove, but I will convince her. Muni went on. Our Pandit discoursed at the temple once how the oceans are going to close over the earth in a huge wave and swallow us. Do you know when it is going to happen? The foreigner now understood by the tone of the other that a question was being asked. I am not a millionaire. My trade is coffee. Coffee? Amidst all this wilderness, Muni caught that word. If you want to drink kapi, drive further up in the next town. I repeat myself, I am not a millionaire. Tell me, will you accept 100 rupees or not for the horse? I'd love to take the whiskered soldier also, but no space for him this year. I'll have to cancel my air ticket and take a boat home, I suppose. Ruth can go by air if she likes. As he smiled at the picture of himself voyaging across the seas, hugging this horse. I have my station wagon, as you see. I can push the seat back and take the horse if you can just lend me a hand. Lend me a hand and I can lift off the horse. At this stage, the mutual mystification was complete. And noting the other's interest in the speech, Muni felt encouraged to ask, how many children have you? The red man replied, realizing it to be a question, I said, 100. Will that do? How many boys and girls do you have? Where are they? Muni asked. In answer to these questions, the red man dashed his hand into the pocket and brought forth the wallet and held out a 100 rupee currency note and said, well, this is what I meant. The old man now realized that some financial element was entering their talks. Coppers, nickels? What was this man flourishing the note for? Perhaps asking for some change? He laughed to himself. He said with a grin, ask our village headman. He is a money lender. The foreigner followed his look and decided that it would be a sound policy to show an interest in the old man's pets. He went up casually to them and stroked their backs with every show of courteous attention. Now the truth dawned on the old man. His dream of a lifetime was about to be realized. He understood that the red man was actually making an offer for the goats. The animals were not prize ones for a cattle show, but they were his, and the red man shook his head. It is all for you, or you may share it if you have a partner. Are you carrying them off in that? Yes, of course, said the other, understanding the transportation part of it. This will be their ride in a motor car. Carry them off after I get out of sight, otherwise they will never follow. But only me, even if I'm traveling on the path to Yamalu. He laughed at his own joke. The red man looked at the goats peacefully, grazing, perched on the pedestal of the horse. As the westerly sun touched off the ancient faded colors of the statue with fresh splendor, he ruminated. He must be gone to fetch some help, I suppose, and settled down to wait. He gave them 5 rupees each. For a further payment, they siphoned off gas from the truck and helped him to start his engine. These were the urchins who had come around from nowhere. Muni hurried homeward with the cash securely tucked away at his waist, stole up softly to his wife as she squatted before the lit oven, wondering if by a miracle food would drop from the sky. Muni displayed his fortune for the day, She snatched the notes from him, counted them by the glow of the fire. 100 rupees? Have you been stealing? I have sold our goats to a red-faced man. He was absolutely crazy to have them. Gave me all his money and carried them off in his motor car. Hardly had these words left his lips when they heard bleating outside. She opened the door and saw the two goats at her door. Here they are. What's the meaning of all this? He muttered a great curse and seized one of the goats by its ears and shouted, "Where is that man? Don't you know you are his? Why did you come back?" The goat only wriggled in his grip. He asked the same question of the other two. The goat shook itself off. His wife glared at him and declared, "If you have thieved, the police will come tonight and break your bones. Don't involve me. I will go away to my parents." What a sweet story of innocent ignorance. I'm sure you've liked the story. So please like, share, subscribe, and press the bell icon to get all updates of the channel. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Thank you for all your love and support so far. Please wait for me till I come again with another story. Till then, stay safe, stay happy. Bye-bye.